Good afternoon, everyone. This is our second film for the month of September. Why do we think filming for the month of September is important? Because the key word for the month is wisdom. It's being able to discern, to become stronger in your thoughts, to increase your intellectual capability and capacity. And one of the things that we did earlier, or maybe you will be seeing a little bit later, is that we had a fabulous interview with Justin Pipcorn in regards to wisdom and meditation and how that affects you inwardly, how it refreshes your spirit and gives you that type of internal wisdom and sense of mind. Today, we're going to change that and talk about an outward experience, about how wisdom can play in our lives and focus on what we do, and how our wisdom, most importantly, can affect others. And today, I have the esteemed presence of Brenda. If I say her last name, I'm going to get it wrong, but I'll try. Brenda Sensis.
Excellent.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Brenda Sensis here is my sidekick today. And I thought when she shared this story with me, which she will be sharing with you later, I thought it was so powerful that it had to be shared with the rest of the community as well. So a little bit about Brenda. Well, she was born not too far away from the beautiful state of New Jersey. So we're in bordering states. Brenda grew up in Pennsylvania and was born in a little area outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. She went to school there. She attended Shippensburg State College. And unlike too many women at that time, she was focusing on a mathematics career and was very deep into the sciences. Right? Yeah, you were. She started at Bell Labs in Allentown as a computer programmer. Now remember this goes back to 1973. So women in programming, we were just really digging our feet into the area. So needless to say, she was a leader in computer programming before things really started blasting for us. And she actually received her master's degree there. And who did she meet along the way? No other than her wonderful partner, Bruce Darnell. He had graduated from Lehigh University, and they were—
Excuse me, I graduated from Lehigh University.
Well, excuse me,
Yeah.
You graduated from Lehigh University, but you met Bruce at Lehigh?
No, I met him at work.
You met him at,
Yeah.
one of those relationships.
He went to Michigan.
Oh,
Everybody knows that.
Okay, very good. And they were married in 1983. Continued working for Bell Labs and AT&T in various positions. Now, little did we know, that is Bruce and I, is that our parents lived 1 block away from each other in New Jersey. And we probably skedaddled between our homes, our various homes that we had, with our parents living there in the same little town of Shrewsbury, New Jersey. Brenda, at this ripe young age, retired in 2001, and they moved to Florida 10 years before that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
So-
a fact.
Huh?
It's also a fact.
It's also a fact,
It is
see?
also a fact.
Coming from a true mathematician, what else could you expect? Well, you might be asking, why is Brenda here today and talking about wisdom? Well, anybody knows Brenda, she's very deep and intellectual, so it should come as no surprise. But we're here today so that she can share with you her story about one of the experiences that she's had as an outgrowth of her participation in social justice with the St. John's Youth Academy, which is located in the county office complex off of Route 1. There at the Youth Academy caters to the educational needs of young men from the ages from 13 to 19. Now this is interesting. I love the way this community of St. Augustine and the county work. This is a confluence of ideas from Compassionate St. Augustine, which really sponsors this program, along with gaining knowledge about this program through social justice, and also to extend it through our dialogues on community conversation. So there's a lot of ways we can get information and expand our knowledge base and gain more wisdom in terms of what we do. So now let's turn to Brenda and the story that she is going to share with us. So, other than me getting a few facts incorrect about your background, would you care to tell us more, Brenda, about who you are and some of the things that interest you?
Well, who am I and what interests me? So, who am I and what interests me? I think of myself as just a regular person, nothing special. I just go along in my life doing the best I can, as many of us do. And the things that interest me are math. I love math. I love the structure of it. I love the beauty of it. I love the consistency of it. I love how it just layers upon each other, each topic one upon the other. Other things that interest me are, well, I used to do a lot of genealogy. I kind of put that aside when I got to a roadblock with records that I couldn't find. And I used to sew. I used to sew my own clothes for work, skirts, suits, and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. Now it doesn't pay to sew anymore. It did back then. And of course, I'm interested in social justice. That's my latest passion.
And tell us a little bit more, Brenda, why and how, what motivated you to become involved in social justice?
Well, social justice conversation here at Westminster came about right at the time when I was beginning my journey on wanting to know more about our country's injustices towards certain people. And what got me on that journey was regular people now are able to video with using their smartphones what's happening around them in their world. And so the killings that I saw and the unjust treatment of people of color, especially at the hands of law enforcement, was really getting me upset, but not enough to get me started doing anything. I was willing to still be a spectator and hope that anybody else or everybody else would eventually get it taken care of. And then came the video, the almost 9-minute video of George Floyd being killed at the hands of a police officer. That was the tipping point for me. I knew at that point, I remember distinctly, that I could no longer sit back and watch. I had to do something.
And how did, what was the decision, what went through your mind when you came to your first conversation session? That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, SJC is good, except
Yeah,
that
that's
stands
right,
for
yeah.
St. John's County, too.
Oh, that's true, that's true.
Well, what I didn't say is that I saw the social justice conversation as a way for me to learn with my neighbors here and my friends here about the inequities we have in our country, and learn about how we, as friends and neighbors, can try to make a difference. So I didn't know what to expect, really, but I am so grateful to Mignon and Sharon for starting this, because wow, I learned a lot, and I now know a whole lot more than I did, and it's really enriched my life. So
Well,
thank you,
thank you
Mignon.
for that endorsement. Didn't expect it, but thank you. I'll accept it very much.
You can pay me later.
Okay, I'll pay you later. I'll pay you later. That is for sure. Now, you also mentioned that there were things that you learned. I think many of us were impacted by George Floyd's murder in many different ways. And I like the fact that you said that was the catalyst to change you from a spectator to a doer. But tell me how you made that transition? Because that's it, from coming from behind the camera to in the camera. What was that path like for you?
Well, I started reading things. I got involved with social justice. At my church, I said, who wants to work with me on social justice? And I had 2 other people who volunteered to work with me. So we started learning, we started reading, watching videos, watching movies, not together all the time, but that was my path. Talking to people, getting involved with community conversations was a real step for me for what to read, who to talk to, things like that. So, and the more I read, the more I wanted to read, and the more I was inspired to do things.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell us a little bit more about the group that started at your church, your church gathering.
Oh, well, there's two of us, and we have an email list of about 20 people. And the first thing we worked on, this was in 2020. I think we started in June of 2020. And of course, the November 2020 election was coming up. So we just wanted to make sure that people would get out to vote. So we put a lot of information out about that and volunteered to help drive people to the polling place. We didn't really get any takers on that, but we did make ourselves available. So that was a start even for us because we've never done that before. So that was a step in the right direction for us to keep moving in a good direction. And now we're working on how to increase diversity at our church, which is the Center for Spiritual Living in St. Augustine, because we are pretty much, I guess, like many other non-black churches, I guess you could say, lots of white people, older people. We don't have a lot of young families at our church, and we have, I think, we had more people of color, but through attrition, we're now down to one couple, and my group that I have just wants to see more faces of God at our church.
Wow, that's a
Yeah.
powerful statement.
Yeah.
Brenda, I have often heard you say, and again, I am paraphrasing, not quoting, I didn't realize I had so much to learn. It didn't have, you said something like that. Tell us, straighten out the sentence for me and tell us what you meant by that.
Well, I grew up in my little white bubble in Pennsylvania, a little rural area. Never really interacted with people of color until when I started working in Bell Labs, we were just starting to get people of color and women into Bell Labs because that was a predominantly white male community. So I call it the privilege of moving and living in a white society with no problems. I didn't have to face anything. I never really developed meaningful friendships with black people. I interacted with them at work. And that was it. I mean, we were always friendly. I never felt a prejudice toward them in that way. What I didn't know is that every day of their lives, they are faced with microaggressions, things that I, as a white person, never have to face. I can move freely around in my society and not even think about the color of my skin. And that's what I refer to as white, well, it's not I refer to, it's what I understand as white privilege. That simply because of the color of my skin, which is white, I don't have to think about anything, really. So when I said I had to learn more, I mean I had to learn more about what it's like to be a person of color in our country, in our society.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm honored by that type of response. Now, you mentioned the word microaggressions. God, that's a big word. So give us an example of what is a microaggression.
Microaggression is the biggest word I know. I'm joking.
Not the computer programming campaign.
No. Microaggressions, from what I understand, are just comments that people make because to a person of color or about a person of color because the expectation is lower for them than maybe a white person. So for example, she's very articulate, you might say about a person of color. Well, most of us are articulate. Why do we have to say that about a person of color? Or, gee, she dresses well. There's lots of people of color that dress well. It's as though you're not expecting, or someone's not expecting that of a person of color, and so it has to be commented on. So I see that as microaggressions. I don't get that. I mean, you know, people say, oh, you're dressed nicely today or something, but I don't take it as, you know, something about my race, whereas it can be construed, and it is a fact that it is about, many times about race when that comment is made about a person of color. Yeah.
Well, I can put my hand up to that. I relate to that comment quite well, because I guess people don't expect me, and I'm going to say what the effect is for me. Oh, you speak so well, like there's a look of astonishment and shock on your face, and I'm like, oh, really? And unfortunately, I've heard it far too often, that is for sure. But let's move on and let's talk about a little bit about why you decided to go and be a tutor at the St. John's Academy, knowing that you were dealing with men, young men, that probably had a very difficult and trying background, because that's what landed them in jail. And why did you decide to do this?
Okay, well, prior to the pandemic, I had been volunteering at mostly elementary schools since I retired in 2001. And I would go to schools that were under-resourced. I lived in Palencia. There was an elementary school 2 blocks from, I could walk in there in 5 minutes. I chose not to volunteer there. Instead, I volunteered at Crookshank Elementary, which is a Title I school. And
just for a minute, where's that school located, Brenda?
It's on,
just general.
well, if you go south on US 1 and make a right on 16 and then a left on Masters Drive, it's down in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the kids are wonderful, the teachers are wonderful. I knew they were underserved, under-resourced, and that's why I decided to volunteer there as a math tutor to help bring kids along in their math studies. You know, I could have come here to Mill Creek. I didn't go to Palencia, because I know that those parents and mostly the parents are really available and have the wherewithal to be with their kids, to volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. That is not the case in many of the underserved schools, because many of the parents are working 2-3 jobs. You know, some of them are homeless. There's just a whole lot of circumstances at those schools that keeps those children at a disadvantage.
So how long did you teach them?
Oh, I didn't get to that.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, well, when I lived up in Ponte Vedra, I was volunteering at Mayport Elementary, which is a similar situation. I started at Crookshank in 2005, 2006 school year.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you were introduced to youth probably because of the social economic situations that they were living under at a very young age.
Yes.
Okay. What did it do for you? What was that experience do for you? And in turn, what do you think you gave to the youth in that age group?
Well, I mean, I learned more about what they face. You know, I can distinctly remember I was helping 5th graders, and I tried to do one-on-one mostly, because that's the kind of attention that was needed for their skill levels at, where they were in their math at that time. I remember one young girl coming out, a 5th grader. Oh, guess what? I see my mom this weekend. I said, oh, that's great. Where is she? Well, she's in jail. I said, oh. I said, and she lived it's 2 hours away. I said, oh, gee, well, I'm really glad you get to see your mom. And she, I let her keep talking. She said, yeah, she was caught for shoplifting. I said, yeah, that wasn't so good, was it? I was trying to talk her through it. And so, I mean, the kids don't have food for the weekends. Some of them live in cars. And so what I learned was compassion, because, you know, they say, oh, these kids, they don't do this, they don't do that. Well, their circumstances aren't conducive. And so my hope was to improve their math skills so that they can get along in school well enough with my little help that I gave.
Well, I'm quite sure you did, and you used another big word called compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And as your friend, and knowing what you do, you've got compassion all in you and around you. And I think that's one of the reasons in my mind that you wanted to take that compassion to a different level to the St. John's Youth Academy.
Yes. So when the pandemic hit, that stopped my volunteering in schools, because first of all, they didn't let volunteers in, and secondly, I didn't want to go in because of the disease. So through social justice, I learned about the St. John's Youth Academy, and I thought, oh, that's a place where, you know, the young boy, I call them boys, I don't call anybody under 18 a man or a woman. That's just my thing, because they're not men or women yet, they're still kids developmentally. So these fellas are there. They've been committed to the St. John's, not St. John's, the Florida juvenile justice system. And I thought, well, you know, if I can help them get their GED by helping them with math, that's a step forward. And that helps, again, lift people up who don't have the resources that I had as a child and that many people don't have. So I thought, well, that's a good place for me to put my energy. Yeah, that was it.
Good. So if I understand correctly, you have had 3 tutoring sessions with a young man, a young boy,
A young fellow.
a young fellow.
Yeah.
Okay, I like young fellow.
A young fellow. Yes.
Okay, now listen up. This is a story. This is one of the stories that Brenda's going to share with us about her experience.
Wow.
Did I build it up, Brenda?
You did.
Okay.
You did great. Thank you. Too much. No. So I'm just going to call him John for privacy purposes. Right. And so he was assigned, and we met, and seemed like a really nice fellow. And I said, okay, so the way it works is he has a packet of problems or topics for math, which is what I'm helping him with, and I have that same packet. And it covers different topics. It might be mean, median, mode, algebraic expressions, plane geometry, whatever it is. I said, you pick out what you want me to cover with you today. So he went to mean, median, and mode, and we were reviewing the material, and he seemed to really get it right away. And he tried one problem. I said, you know, John, you really seem to, you know, understand this. And he said, well, in Miami where I lived, I was in advanced courses. I said, oh, because most of the kids have been helping weren't in advanced courses. I can just say that. So we went on through. There was a problem about golf, figuring out average score of 7 golf scores, and he was very interested in golf. We talked about that. Really nice young fellow. And toward the end, for some reason, I was moved to affirm him, to let him know that he is a human being, as I am. We were born as human beings, and that we're born with goodness in us. We all have goodness in us, and that we make mistakes. We're human beings. We make mistakes. And I told him I've made plenty of them. I said, the thing is, you need to learn from them, because if you don't, you'll keep making the same mistake. And I also said, besides that you're human and you make mistakes and your goodness, I said, you came into this world with gifts and talents, just like I did. I happen to have a gift and talent for math. You have aptitude for math, and I don't know which other things. I said, I don't know what got you here. I don't need to know. All I can say is I hope that you will use your talents and gifts in service first to yourself and then in service to other people. And that's the way I left it with the session with him.
And what do you think he felt by those words of affirmation and support?
Well, I won't know what he felt. He seemed to respond positively, and I hope and I can't help but think that whenever someone affirms someone else's good and humanity, it can't be negative. So the worst could be as neutral or positive, and I'm hoping for him it was a positive thing that he can affirm now for himself his goodness and his humanity.
That's that awesome story that I heard. And also what I heard today in you telling that fantastic story is that here it was, they were both handed the same package of information, and Brenda empowered him to pick out the one that he wanted to work on, as opposed to just opening up a book and manual and saying, okay, let's start at page 1 and let's go through 1 through 5. It was the dignity. It was the dignity in the moment that she gave this young man who's probably been told, you must do this, you must do that, and here's the way you have to do it, blah, blah, blah. So, in my mind, in which I always will continue to give high praises for, you gave him a tool called empowerment that he knows that he could make his decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process, you learned something that he was good or proficient in.
Mm-hmm.
And what you did was also to give him praise for his proficiency, and were able to engage in a conversation with him back and forth, which again is your beautiful display of compassion.
Well, thank you.
Now, it's greatly appreciated, greatly appreciated. So when do you go back? Will you see the same student again, or how does it work?
Well, I just learned today that he's leaving on Wednesday.
Oh.
Yeah, he's 18,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going back to Miami to where he'll go into adult education. And the way St. John's Youth Academy works is they deal with the people there holistically. They deal with their mental, their emotional, their behavioral, and any addiction challenges that they have, with the goal of making them productive citizens when they leave. And they have services after they leave to keep them supported. So he's getting support down in Miami to continue his adult education. And he also has a certificate in HBI. I didn't learn what that acronym means, but it deals with that he apprenticed as in construction and can get into construction work. And when we were finished and walking out, he said, yeah, and it involves a lot of math. And I said, well, good, you know your math well enough, yeah. So I keep affirming him in my mind that he will go on. And I even said to him, beyond building things, maybe you want to become an architect because you know math well enough. Maybe that would be in your future. I don't know, but
You're always Julia Morgan, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's a hint on the play.
The play, Arches, Balance, and Light. I was the young Julia Morgan.
Yes. So Brenda, this has been a pleasure sharing and having you share this wonderful story. I really appreciate you taking the time and willingness to be able to share it, even though I said, you gotta do it. And in closing, as we look at the month of September, wisdom comes in many forms. And this is just one shade of wisdom that we're sharing with you this afternoon. The wisdom and learning of compassion, taking a risk going into a situation that might have been perceived as difficult, and really taking a leap, as Brenda did, in learning more and wanting to do more. That's wisdom, and it comes with gratitude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mignon. Thank you for listening, everyone.